Hello and welcome to another edition of the Short Player Profiles. I am your host, the Fantasy Football Joker at Jack Lusney. When it's back up and running properly, you can follow me on Twitter at Jack Lusney. You can also follow at FF Advice Forum, fantasyfootballadviceforum.com. They are coming out with exclusive content all the time. My wide receiver dynasty rankings will be going up shortly, either today or tomorrow. So please make sure you go sign up. It's only $2.99 a month. There's all kinds of great creators over there releasing content. There's a great community starting up over there. So go sign up ASAP. So we'll get right into things. Today, L is for love. Jordan Love. I love love. You know why I love love? Because I love history. I am a man of history, and history repeats itself. So we've already seen, obviously, Aaron Rodgers was traded to the New York Jets, just like once upon a time Brett Favre, who Aaron Rodgers replaced as the Green Bay Packers quarterback, was traded to the New York Jets, ironically enough. Now we're seeing Jordan Love is the man in town to replace Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going to work my way back here, starting with Packers history. Obviously, you go all the way back to the days of Bart Starr and then Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. These are all Hall of Fame quarterbacks. But even if you look at the other quarterbacks that aren't talked about as much, before Bart Starr, you had Arnie Herber, who won 4 championships all the way back in the 30s. And then more recently, leading up to Brett Favre, you had Lynn Dickey and the Magic Man Don Majkowski. Both were serviceable quarterbacks. So it's like, at worst, you're expecting Jordan Love to be a multi-year starter and at bare minimum a serviceable quarterback. So the next thing I wanted to do was look at the weapons. So you look at Aaron Rodgers. I took his 2 rookie seasons, essentially, which obviously was after he had sat behind Brett Favre for those couple seasons. I think it was 3 seasons he ended up sitting behind Favre. And I wanted to also just compare the weapons. So let's compare the stats and the weapons. So looking at the weapons, you have a better backfield for Jordan Love with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon compared to Ryan Grant and a litany of, a bunch of dudes. Rodgers definitely had the advantage at wide receiver. He had a group of Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, James Jones, and Jordy Nelson. So that was obviously a decent group compared to, I still like Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed. That could be a nice little grouping, and they'll grow together with Love, but obviously not comparable. And then the tight ends. They just drafted the 2 tight ends, Musgrave and Kraft. Rodgers never really used tight ends, but even back then, he only had Torrey Humphrey and Donald Lee, and then they drafted a rookie, Jermichael Finley, so it wasn't like he really had that. And Rodgers still put up 4,038 yards, 28 touchdowns, 13 interceptions his first year, and then 4,434 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions the next year. Both of those are good enough to be top 10 seasons. I'm not expecting that from Jordan Love, but like Rodgers in his early days, Love does have some rushing upside, a little bit of mobility. So if you chart him out at about 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and then, maybe another like 300 to 400 yards rushing with like 4 to 5 touchdowns, that's going to be good enough to push him to a top 12 season, even in redraft leagues. And I think that as a late flyer, as my quarterback 2 or 3 in redraft leagues, I like it. I definitely love him as a super flex option as my 2nd or 3rd quarterback, preferably my 3rd. But if I waited on quarterback, I'm usually taking the shot on him where I'm reaching a little bit to make sure I get him, but I'm getting him in 6th or 7th rounds, even in super flex. He is starting to go a little bit higher, but generally speaking, in the 6th round, he's readily available to me. And in dynasty leagues, people are still kind of cold on him, so he is definitely a go-buy now, because at worst, I think he's going to be serviceable for the next several years, but obviously the potential is a decade-long starter. Thank you so much for joining. As always, I am the Fantasy Football Joker. Make sure you're following me on Twitter, and make sure you follow at FF Advice Forum, and check out fantasyfootballadviceforum.com.